Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to thank SME Chamber and Sakshi to giving me this opportunity for giving this presentation on especially about the ISO certification and all, which is a business requirement. So I would like to highlight, especially it will be more of an interactive session when I am going to discuss on this particular requirement. The topic which I selected is basically ISO certification for business, but it's totally different when you will go into this requirement. See, first of all, why would we all as an organization like to go for ISO certification? Is it a mandatory requirement? Absolutely not. It is not a mandatory requirement. And we don't want to go for an ISO certification because it's not required. It is required either by if you want to participate in some tenders. So we say tendering business. Those who are in tendering business, they go for an ISO certification. For them, the ISO certification is very, you can say, just to get the certificate by any way. Okay? If you are looking for a certification when it is a marketing purpose and a brand development. Okay? So we usually say that building brand identity and marketing strategy. In this sense, when you are going for a certification, your approach of getting the certification is fairly that, okay, your competitor is certified by which standard or which product or which certification body. So your look and feel is that, let's get into this. If it is a very new business, you simply get into the certification again as a piece of paper, I will say. Okay, that's another area you are looking into an ISO certification. But the main crunch is that where you want to grow your business, whether you want to be in the business same as what you were or what you want. If your business is suppose 5 crore today and you want to be a 50 crore, you cannot do by participating in tender or doing a simply building marketing strategy by getting into the ISO certification. You have to comply with the customer requirement. When your approach is a customer requirement, it's totally different. Because if your customer demands, we need this certification. Okay? I will tell you one typical example. There is a garment industry in Satara. Okay? And they were doing a business from last 20 years. And in 20 years, they were doing a fairly good business of 10 crores and still on 10 crores. Now they want to grow their business to 100 crores. And they were doing a business with a big companies, Walmart, okay, Jara and all. Now they have given the input that, okay, you need to comply with the Inditex, SEDEX. Now this is a certification which is new to them and they are not able to get into this requirement. It's a customer requirement. They approach us. Sir, we want a SEDEX. We have a ISO, but we want a SEDEX. So my first question is to them that, are you really looking for a certification or you are looking for to fulfill the customer needs? They say, no, our customer demands, otherwise we'll lose the business. Then I will give them a checklist that you need to follow this. Whether you have a factory license, whether you have a fire license, whether you have a PF or ESIC compliance, whether you have a systematic implemented ISO certification in place. No, we don't have, but you still want to do the good business. Then it's a very difficult situation for them to grow from 10x to 100x. And that's what customer requirements comes into the picture, and they have to comply all these requirements. And now what they will do, they start from the scratch. And this is how customer requirements comes into the picture. Another area which we want to discuss about this vendor approval services. Okay. Again, this is very important. You are doing a business with many companies. Okay. You want to do with ONGC, you want to do with railway, you want to do EIL, okay? So when you want to do a railway, I think anyone from here is supplying to railway? Any manufacturer? Or they are approved vendor with Engineers India Limited, EIL? Those who don't, this is an important requirement when you are registered with EIL and RDSO. RDSO says that you have to comply with the product certification, which is ISI mark. Or if it is a international product, you have to comply with the CE mark or GOST standard from Russia or US FDA. But ISO 9000 certification is very important. Now, again, there is a question. There is a organization who is doing the sheet metal, okay, supplying to the railway, and they want to supply to the railway. But they do not have a ISO certification in a proper way. They have everything in place, and they want to register it with RDSO, railway. It's very difficult situation for them. They have to go for a proper ISO system certification with a proper documentation, followed with product certification ISI and the requirement defined by the RDSO, and then they will able to approach it. So that's called vendor approval services. And now we talk about process improvement. Now, who wants to go for a process improvement? The company who is having a vision of being a good company. Okay, they want to be the one of the best company providing the quality products. They want to be in a process improvement. So the companies like Tata, the companies like the multifold 100 plus companies, 100 crore plus companies, because if do not have a system in place, they will not grow. So process improvement is one of the important requirement, and people go for this without any reason. And here the ISO certification is a minute part. They go for a more improvement. It is called as a Six Sigma certification and JED certification. Okay, so that's what the process improvements comes into the picture. So now this is why I just talk about why people want to go for this certification. There are many benefits of getting ISO certification. You get the certification because it gives the credibility and reputation when you're supplying the product to various industries. It also gives the customer satisfaction. You buy the product not only because the price is less. You buy the product because the delivery is fast, the quality is good, and you trust on them. That's what the customer satisfaction is there. Competitive advantage, when you get this, say like suppose you become a railway approved, you have a competitive advantage to supply to the railway. Okay? If you want to go in the financial institution and you are certified for ISO 27000 or 20000 or 22301, or you can say SOC 2. So this will give a added advantage. If you are in payment card industry, you should be a PCI DSS. All these requirements comes into the picture. Operational efficiency. Yes, once the systems are in place, it is very good that you can deliver the good product on time, and you can also analyze many data, because all this certification having their requirement, one of the important requirement is called check, PDCA, Plan, Do, Check Act. Check is the one of the requirement, and there is an act also that if something is happening wrong, you can do the root cause analysis. So this system works for your organization efficiency also. When we talk about the regulatory compliances, the certification also help out in the regulatory compliances. Suppose you want to go for a 14,000 certification, 45,000 certification, or any other some certification talks about the regulatory compliance. It talk about whether you have a factory license, whether you have a pollution license, whether you have a, nowadays if you are importing, you have a EPR plastic, EPR e-waste, okay? If you are doing in an industry called explosive environment, you need a PESO compliance. Many such certification and licenses are required. And if you are going with this proper requirement, it will be help you out in getting regulatory compliance. Risk management, yes. Risk is the important factor in now all the standards. We talk about risk assessment, risk treatment. We talk about the risk in the business. We talk about the risk in the product. So these particular standards come to know that how you can comply to this requirement also. We have a continuous improvement. When you do these particular services, you get every time audited, and it's giving a good opportunity that you are improving in your systems. Global recognition. So once your product is certified, like say suppose if you want to get a CE mark, okay, which is a product certification, so you are recognized globally in the Europe. If your product is certified for US FDA, you are again globally recognized in US. So that's how the products are fulfilled into the global recognition. Employee engagement, yes. Again, the standards are very focused on employee engagement, right from training the people about the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, giving them the product requirements, regulatory requirements. All this help out to be in a good employee engagement activities. And supply chain requirements, yes. Whenever you are doing the product like FSC, if you are in a product called printing or wood related products, you need to have a supply chain management requirement, because it comes as a chain of custody certificate like FSC, there is a called MPEDA, and all these things are requirement in this particular require. Now when we are talking about a management system certification, there are various ISO certification. I am not going into detail of these things. It is 9,000, 14,000, 45,000 environment, health and safety, 27,000 for information security, 22,000 for food safety, and 50,000 for energy management. So these all certification, when got into the combination, it becomes a customer requirement. Okay, these are the combination certification. When you combine three standards, 9, 14, 45, it becomes a social compliance. Now the main area, if you want to really do a good business, you have to follow into the industry specific certification. Industry specific certification, like if you are a manufacturer of automobile products, you have to comply with IATF requirements, and IATF requirement is really a very tough requirement. You have to follow the regulatory requirements, you have to follow the as well as the process requirements. Both the things need to be fulfilled very hard, and you want to get into this certification, you need to have minimum 6 months to 9 months of a process implement, then you will able to achieve this certification. AS 9000, again it is a aerospace. If you are again a supplier of aerospace products, okay, you need to follow the similar compliance in that also. API, it is called the American Petroleum Institute. If you have a product where you want to supply to the oil and gas industries, you have to follow the API. There is a two product, API Q1, API Q2. And again, when you are going for API Q1, Q2, it is an industry specific certification, and you have to follow all these requirements: regulatory, process, improvements, vendor requirements, chain of custody certification, everything need to be followed. Now, looking into when I am talking about especially the BRC product, which is not mentioned here, when we talk about a BRC, kosher, halal, which is related to food, in Indian context, there is a requirement called a FSSAI, Food Safety Certification, okay? So you have to follow all kind of food safety requirement, which is either which kind of business, whether you are importing, exporting, product certification, you have to fulfill all these requirements. Then, if I talk about ISO 13485, which is especially for medical device. Anyone who is manufacturing a medical device, it is a new regulation in India, come out in 2017, having mandatory happened till 2022. So from now it is a mandatory for many of the products. If you are importing any medical device or if you are manufacturing medical device, you have to follow the CDSCO licensing requirements along with ISO 13485 certification. And last but not least, which I addressed here, is ISO 18788. It is for the security agency who are in this business. They can go for this particular certification. Now, how we help out in getting into the ISO certificate? Actually, many of the people are going for certification for various purposes: tender, brand building, customer process, vendor approval process. But ideally, the certification should be, you should have a proper documentation which includes manual, procedures, SOPs, work instructions, checklist and record. There should be a training in your organization related to respective ISO standards, SOP based and internal audit. When we do this documentation and a training, you do an implementation at your place where it can be verified with reference to records, awareness of the team, internal audit, management review meeting, and closure of non-conformity raised by either in internal audit or in an external audit or a vendor approval process. And last but not least, once you are ready with all these things, you can get audited by the certification body. Once the audit is done, you will award it with the certificate, but certificate is not the milestone. You have to implement and achieve these results year on year. That is also one of the requirement. These are the few certification. We are also one of the certification body having accreditation from US and Singapore. And we are working with many sub-certification like TUV, BUQ, DNV. SGS, myself, I worked with TUV Node for almost almost 6 years in certification body, and then I started my own. The process of certification is very easy, whether it is a Product approval, whether it is ISO certification, it's always started with the audit, stage 1 and stage 2 audit. Stage 1 audit is always the desktop assessment, and then the practical audit will be conducted and followed with the yearly audit. It depends upon how much year of certificate is issued, whether it is issued for 1 year, 2 year or 3 year or 5 year. Every year the audit will be conducted. So these are some value-added customer. One of the oldest customer of TALOJA Manufacturing Association is a common effluent treatment plant. I audited almost more than 15 years back, and they are still a client where we have certified them for 9,000, 14,000, 45,000. And these are the few customers. Now I would like to highlight few of my services which is very important. I am not getting much time to explain each and every subject is a very vast subject. But as I said that our specific services included India entry consulting. So if anybody bringing the product to the India and they need a support on the specific licenses which is called BIS, ISI, PESO, legal metrology for packaging commodity, weight and measure, and EPR services. So we help the companies into getting into this requirement. Regulatory business licenses, suppose any business owners is having a problem with the factory license, pollution, fire NOC for their businesses, we support on those requirements. ISO certification I have discussed already. Product certification, ISI mark is one which is in India. But if you want to do export in various countries, you have a C mark, you have a GOSTAR. If you want to do a Saudi Arabia, you have a SABR. You have a QAS for Kuwait. So every country is having a different certification. We also do ESG compliance, okay? And nowadays, if you are in a steel and steel related product, if you want to supply to Europe, you have a CBAM compliance, which is called Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Solar panel people can be one of the part where they can get benefited because you have to do a carbon emission minimum to supply the product, especially steel urea, to the international market. We also become an authorized representative when it is an Indian context comes into the picture. I would like to highlight here, we have two websites. One is called certificationinindia.com and licenseinindia.com, which give you a knowledge website about what product you are in, what kind of license you need, for which country, for which department. So you can access to that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to talk to me right now. Thank you. If any questions, please just ask me. Any question? Or I am pretty clear? Thank you.